ZDNet has obtained leaked audio of Facebook Chief Security Officer Alex Stamos comparing the company's security infrastructure to that of a college campus. For Tech Republic in Louisville, Kentucky this week, I'm Dan Patterson with ZDNet Editor-in-Chief and Tech Republic Editorial Director Larry Dignan to discuss Facebook security. Larry, this was a pretty big gaffe. What does it mean?
Well, I don't know if it's a gaffe. It was a nice dose of honesty. Stamos' comments came from a internal Facebook Live Q&A session they had. And what he said is that, the threats Facebook's facing, as well as the adversaries, have really upped the ante of late, right? So, when you think about what Facebook knows about you, could you imagine? It's like a data gold mine, right? So naturally they're under attack a lot. And, you toss that in with the Russia stuff and, all the ads and how everybody's getting manipulated, it's kind of a rough time to be Facebook right now. But what Stamos was really getting at is that, Facebook needs to think about his security more like a defense contractor would. Like you specifically mentioned Raytheon and Northrop Grumman. And, that's kind of interesting because when you think about Facebook, you think of it, you could argue that it's basically a country, right? It's a bunch of people, it's a big target, lots of information being thrown around, lots of communication. But, when I look at what he said, I kind of up-level it a good bit because honestly, when you look at the data breach reports and all that, there's so many state actors involved at this point. I would really argue that what he's talking about how, Facebook today is not necessarily, it's not caught up with that defense contractor thing. I'd argue every company needs to start thinking that way because anybody with any information worth anything is probably going to have a state actor floating around somewhere or trying to get information. And, when he made the college campus reference, that's kind of how corporate IT is, right? It's sort of cobble together a few things. Security's there, but there's probably holes everywhere. You would hope a defense contractor is a little more buttoned down than that. So I think that's what he's getting at. And the big takeaway for me is that I'd probably argue every company needs to be thinking about that. Facebook's just sort of the first one to kind of acknowledge it publicly. So, I kind of give them props for even saying it. But you kind of see where this is going. And if there's so many state actors out there hacking around your networks, every company is going to have to button this down. And I guarantee you they're not going to have the resources that Facebook has.
So where does Facebook go from this? Are there ways for them to provide security assurances to their customers, not just the users, but to advertisers as well, above and beyond what they're doing now?
Well, I kind of look at it this way. Facebook security must be pretty good because if they were going to get whacked, they would have been whacked already, right? Because they've had this treasure trove for a while. So I think what probably needs to change, what I find interesting here is, those comments by Stamos are basically getting at, Facebook's growing up a bit. Like it's one more data point kind of showing how it's wrapping its head around that, yeah, we're more than just a little social network thing at this point. So yeah, they're kind of growing up. So, I think it's almost more of a cultural thinking type thing when they talk about, thinking like a defense contractor as opposed to a college campus or social network security, et cetera. And I think it's an evolution that's going to have to happen. We saw Microsoft really stepped up their security stuff years back after being targeted over and over again. Companies like Amazon, their security's, solid, really good because they offer their services to enterprises, right? Google, same kind of deal. So, since Facebook doesn't offer those corporate services per se, it's probably had a little more of, security leeway than before. But what this really is an acknowledgement that the adversaries are really getting a lot better.
I'm glad you mentioned that Facebook is probably reasonably secure because they would have been hacked by now. But are there things that companies can learn from not just the way Facebook communicates about this, but their actual security practices and protocols? If I run an enterprise company, can I look to Facebook as an example?
I think, well, for me, the biggest example to take away from what they do on the front-facing security side is, Facebook, it's almost hard to operate without two-factor authentication, right? Which is, it's basic, yet not used a ton, right? So that alone secures a lot of things and locks it down pretty well. You can kind of compare like Facebook's approach with Yahoo's, right? Yahoo, every account owner got screwed, right? You might have just been putting it out there on the dark web yourself. And then they got the two-factor later, but Facebook had the two-factor, kind of ahead of everyone else because of the mobile move and all that kind of thing. I think any enterprise with like front-facing consumer data, I think has to look at two-factor or some sort of, you got to implement that somehow, right? And a lot of companies are, and then you got to educate consumers to actually do it. I think the defense contractor things, I think Facebook has the money where they can actually launch their own security research team, and maybe they have it in the background, but I kind of look at this and almost see it as an opportunity more than a mea culpa, where they can really step up their game, and they have the resources to do so.
Facebook, when they get hacked, it's obvious what the data can be. Equifax, it's obvious after the fact what the leaked data can be. But you mentioned the dark web a moment ago. Are there other companies that we might not be aware of that are more insecure than Facebook but have an equivalent or similar types of data?
Well, Equifax would be one for sure, right? They have what Facebook has that the other ones don't have is they can take core data like addresses and things like that, and they can put together with actual behavior, like, kind of where you go, what you buy, that kind of thing. And that's what makes like Facebook and Amazon and those types big targets. But honestly, I would say any company that has a good bit of customer data needs to step up their game, right? Because it's just a big black eye. So, obviously Google knows a lot about you. Facebook does, Amazon. A lot of companies below that level, though, I'm sure they don't have that security.
And beyond two-factor authentication, which everyone should turn on, what other steps can consumers take to keep themselves safe and secure?
It's challenging. I think the main thing is you just got to be vigilant and kind of know what's going on. You need to monitor your credit rating services. You need to just stay on top of your data. Because let's face it, you can't do anything really online without swapping data somewhere. So I think you have to monitor it. You have to just pay attention to the privacy stuff, and basically control what you can in terms of what's released and what's not, because so much of it's out of your control, right? Like nobody opted into Equifax. In a social media context, it's sort of, you got to sort of think that way or be smart. You can't just be coughing up everything about yourself. Yet people do it all the time.
Yeah. Well, so data hygiene is the new personal hygiene. You can read all about this evolving story by reading Larry's post on ZDNet.com and follow analysis of cybersecurity, including best practices, by visiting TechRepublic.com.